boardwalk history because we have a pretty important asset on the boardwalk that now something new needs to rise. And we just need to think about both the process for deciding on what that is and then decide what it is. So with me today, we've got a number of speakers. So we've got Pete is from Flanders, President of Flanders. Everyone will do a job of introducing themselves when they get up here, but he'll walk through the, and then flip down one slide. He'll go through the current situation in Ocean City in terms of the economic conditions and what. The mic is on? Yeah. Hold on.
You got to speak into the mic, Bill.
Yep.
Yeah, the audio is not that clear. Hold on.
Okay, how's that? Better? So Pete Voudouris from Flanders will talk about the current situation. Again, that's the economic condition on the island and what we think that, what it is and what it sort of commands going forward. Then we're going to have Brian Liu talk about the boardwalk. Longtime resident, he'll introduce himself, but just talk about what makes for a vibrant boardwalk. I will walk then through the hotel proposal that's on the table and how that does or does not meet the current needs of the community. Jim Turteltaub, who's a lawyer over there. You can pick out the lawyer, the only guy in a suit. He will talk about redevelopment, because that's a big part of what is being proposed, and he'll walk you through that so you understand it and understand the risks associated with going through redevelopment. Then we'll talk about a better way forward, we think, both in terms of an idea for a project that came in through our contest. So we're running a contest and just in terms of trying to generate some ideas that we can give to council that they can think about. So we'll talk about that. And then Richard Barth will deliver a closing statement, another longtime resident of the island, and then Helen Struckman will finish out with the ask. So there's a couple things we'd like you to do, and she'll ask you about that stuff. So next slide, please. So we've had a lot of people help us put this together, so it's not just the group of friends and the people from Save Wonderland, but we've reached out to a number of people on the island, off the island, to just make sure that we're not making big mistakes. I'm sure we've made mistakes, everyone does, but so we've talked to residents, we've talked to business owners, we've spoken with business executives, we've spoken with philanthropists, because part of what we want to do is to see if we can generate donations to do some of the things that we want to do. We have finance executives that are sort of running numbers for us. We've had land use lawyer, which is Jim, help us. We've had architects, both Snee and others have worked with us, and developers. So we've tried to pull together as much information, and also spoken to the hotel owners on the island. We've talked to the amusement park owners on the island. Again, trying to gather as much information as we can to make sure that what we're putting out today represents as close to fact as we can. All right? So next page. So just if you go on social media, one of the questions that comes up, and it's a legitimate question, is why is the public involved in this? This is this person owns the land. Can't they just do what they want with the land? So the answer to that is, if the developer in this instance wanted to build something that conformed with the zoning, none of us would be here today. We would be out Christmas shopping.
Don't forget to speak into the mic.
Yep. Okay, how's that? So, again, if the developer wanted to comply with the zoning, build something consistent with the zoning, we wouldn't be here. That's his right. This is his absolute right. And we could just decide at the end of the day whether we're going to frequent what he builds or not. But that would be absolutely his choice, and we would have no involvement in that at all. But that's not what he's doing. What he wants to do is build something that is not permitted at that location on the boardwalk. And because it's not permitted, he then needs permission. He needs permission for two things. He needs permission to build something different than what the zoning requires, and he's asking for permission to do it by a process that is different than the typical process that the city uses. So it becomes then a public process because those votes will be by council. And as a government by the people, for the people, we're able, and everyone is able, to comment on and speak about and in a sense, give information to council so that they can make the right choice. So that's why we're here. We're not here to try to tell somebody what they should do with their land. We're here to advise council as to how they should think about that. Okay, so I just want to make that clear, because I think in social media, every once in a while, people get uppity, which they should, if they felt we were trying to take somebody's land. That's not what's going on here at all. Okay, so with that, I think it goes to Pete.
If I could ask the speakers to definitely speak into the microphone because the people
Got it.
online are having some difficulty hearing.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Does that work? Is that okay? All right. My name is Pete Vidoris. I'm here representing the Flanders Hotel. All good? Thank you. Is that good? Let me explain a little bit about myself. I wear two hats at the Flanders. I am Director of Hotel and Banquet Operations, so I oversee the whole operation of the Flanders, including marketing, room rentals, and I'm also President of the Board of Trustees for the Flanders. It's been a long travel, 20 years. 20 years I've been there. We pulled out of bankruptcy in 2004 and developed it into what it is today. It's been a challenge. It's really been a challenge. I look at that expression, they say that time flies when you're having fun. I'm not sure that it applies to me, but it's been a very important part of my life. Please understand, we are the largest lodging facility in Ocean City, and we are one of the largest employers of Ocean City. So I think I have a good idea what has occurred in the last 20 years and what the trends are moving forward. You look at that one slide and we talk about family friendly, we talk about affordability for lodging and easy access. So let me start this way. How many attended the meeting on Monday night at the library? Wow. I want to speak about that just for a second or two. I wanted to go there myself because I wanted to see this presentation in person. But more importantly, I wanted to see what you guys said about it. The people that own this town and are a big part of this town. And I think the message was pretty clear that most of you are not in favor of it. So we're going to talk about a couple points today. But I want to comment about the people in that meeting that raised their hands and made comments about parking and traffic and zoning and if it's the right venue for Ocean City. Great comments, you people get it. It's a great message to get to this new resort that's being proposed. And let me just mention Mr. Mita. Mr. Mita is well respected, well off. His presentation was professional, no question about it. And I don't know Mr. Mita, but I hear he's a good person. But it's not all about that. He's a salesman. And you need to be a salesman in order to be successful as he is. And he put a sales pitch together, and I think it was obvious that most of you aren't buying his sales pitch. So this morning, I'm going to touch on a couple things that Bill asked me to touch on. Let's look at one of the statements that was presented a couple times, that there used to be 3,000 hotel rooms and there's only 1,000. He's 100% correct. But let's look inside those numbers. In the 1920s, Ocean City Boardwalk was lined with hotels. The Great Fire of 1927 wiped all the hotels out. After the Depression, hotels started being built again in Ocean City. You had the Breakers, the Lincoln, the Illinois, the Strand, and Colonial. But what happened? In the 70s, 1970 to 79, they're all gone. All gone. What happened? Ocean City changed. You had your condotels coming. You had your bed and breakfasts coming. All right? Everything, your duplexes, everything changed about Ocean City. Instead of this big hotel town, it was more quaint and different venues all throughout. Let's be honest, this has been a very successful formula for Ocean City. It offers affordable accommodations, which makes our town work. So that brings us today. How does the lodging componentry of Ocean City fare today? I can tell you, in the last 5 years, it's been a challenge. I'm sure most of you know labor rates have gone minimum wage from 10 to 11 to 12, all the way up to 15. And again, it's going up again next year. Inflation, cost of goods and services, utilities, everything has gone up. So unfortunately, us as lodging people had to raise our rates. Please understand, accommodations are good, but we're not sold out all the time. We all know, come 4th of July, we're sold out. And there might be a couple nights in August, we're sold out. But for the most part, there's always rooms available. Always rooms available. And I want to add one other thing that I think is important. Our lodging in Ocean City is outstanding. If you go on TripAdvisor or Booking.com or Expedia, look how our lodging is rated. Almost every lodging facility in Ocean City is rated excellent or exceptional. So I think we're doing our job for the city. But I got to tell you, the guests are starting to struggle. The costs are catching up a little bit. It's getting a little expensive to vacation in Ocean City for what we're offering. For what we're offering. You know, some of these stays that used to be 3 and 4 nights are now 1 and 2 nights. But the thing that really scared me is the number of children in our reservation is dropping. So what does that tell you? We're losing our middle class people. And how important is our middle class people? This allowed us to shout that slogan, Ocean City, America's greatest family resort. So here we are today, 2025 season coming up. If you look at the bookings for the season, if you go online and you look at July, plenty of hotel rooms, condotel rooms, but what's changed a little bit is also Airbnb, which is big in our city. If you go in there, you're going to see hundreds of rooms available for lodging. So lodging right now is not our problem. This summer, we lost one of the most iconic landmarks of this city, Wonderland Pier. Trust me, it's going to hurt reservations in this city. We need attractions, a viable and entertainment boardwalk to promote our family-friendly experience as we all know it. We need to bring the middle class back to Ocean City. You know, one other item I'd like to address is parking. And during his presentation, if you noticed, he kind of skirted the issue a little bit, and I would have done the same thing. So let me talk about it a little bit. When people today come on vacation. Times have changed. A lot of families, both the wife and husband are working, and maybe one of their teenage kids. People don't come to Ocean City in one car anymore. And how do I know this? The Flanders Hotel, we do not own that large parking lot across the street. We don't own it. We pay $90,000 a year to park our guests in that lot. So we have to track every single car. And on average, it's 1.4 cars per room rental. 1.4. So to give you an example, if we have 100 rooms rented, we got to make sure we have 140 spaces. Make sense? So let's look at Mita's plan, where he has 252 hotel rooms. You remember how many times he kept saying, I have 100 extra spots. I have 100 extra spots. Well, if you take that 252 times 1.4, all those spots are gone. He'll need every single spot for his hotel guests. All right? So let's go further. He was very honest, and he said, we do not have spaces for our employees. Everybody remember him saying that? He was very honest. So let me tell you our situation. In the Flanders in the summer, we have 125 employees. 125. We provide parking for about 30%. I think you're smart enough to know for a facility that is 1.5 times larger than us, and he runs successful places, I think he's going to need over 200 employees to turn over rooms every day. Where are they going to park? And you know what? He's going to have a banquet facility. And I want to give you an example. We had Thanksgiving yesterday. That is a very important event for us at the Flanders that is supported by you people. We had 800 people come for dinner. 800 people. But let me explain something. We put this beautiful package together for discounted room, discounted dinner, and a discounted breakfast. Great package. You know how many we sold? 19. So that takes care of 40 people. Where do the other 750 people park? That's a problem. And he also mentioned weddings. Weddings, he said they're all destination weddings. That's not true. I can give you facts and figures that show on our weddings, only 20% stay in our hotel. The others have to arrive by car or get there. So parking and traffic down that part of the city is going to be a major concern, a major, major issue. And people that brought that up in the meeting, you get it. You know, in closing, I stated I've been to Flanders for 2 decades. I tried to bring my best. I do my best to bring this Flanders something that you would enjoy as residents of Ocean City, our guests, our visitors, our owners. But more importantly, I wanted it to be a property that you're proud of because it's one of your landmarks. It is the landmark of Ocean City. Ocean City is a special place. I've got to know so many of you through the years, and my staff has, and boy, do you have a passion for your city that nobody else has. Nobody. This quaint town, this charming town, nobody has it. Nobody has it. And I'm going to tell you right now, you have to decide how you want this town. And maybe some of you want to change it into a resort town, or maybe you do not. But I'm going to give you a word of advice. Whatever you decide, you got to reach out to your council people, whether it's by phone or in writing, and you need to keep coming to these meetings to express your opinions. These council people need to know how you feel about your town. Because if you don't, you're going to wake up someday and it's all going to be changed. I thank you for listening to me. I hope everyone enjoyed the holiday. God bless everyone.
Thanks, Pete. Can everybody hear me?
You gotta get right in on
How about now? That's why I didn't want to do the introduction, because I wanted to get that sorted out by Bill. Thank you. So, my name is Brian Leo. Some of you may know me, some of you may not. Most of you may know my house. The Genevieve was a restoration project we had done over on Wesley Avenue about 2 years ago now, 2.5 years ago. I'm from Ocean City. My grandparents moved here following the Second World War. My grandfather was a retired policeman here. My grandmother worked at the Chelsea Title Bank and Loan over on Asbury. My mother's class of 59, I'm 85, and then we've got another one who'll be graduating next year. I was away for about 20 years, living in different parts of the country. Not sure I was ever going to come home. I didn't really know. But I knew that when I came home, it would be the town that I left. I've been here in the city for 2.5 years. I have seen the crowds come, I've seen the crowds go, and I'm very impressed with how this city conducts itself. And what I'm here to talk about is some of the attributes that make a successful boardwalk, that make a unique boardwalk that we have here in Ocean City. We have great attractions, we know that. Dining, for the size of this town, you can throw a rock and hit 3 different places, not that I advise it, 3 different places to find a great meal. Okay? It makes it special. There are restaurants that have been here since I was a kid that are still here. Sure, we all mourn the loss of All Tacos and some of the other namesakes, Wards, okay? I know I do. But there's great new places coming in. I think Pete said it best, that this town changes and adapts. He rattled off a couple of hotels that quite frankly were iconic and beautiful hotels. And in the late 70s to very early 80s, they were all wiped out. The city adapts. It's a fantastic place to live. We have a variety of retail shops on the boardwalk. You all know it. It's a destination. Waterfront accessibility. There's a design aesthetic that's very unique for Ocean City. The one thing I love about South Jersey is you can drive from town to town and they each have their own unique flavor, their own unique qualities that you know you're in a different town. Wildwood has his, Cape May has theirs, so on and so forth. Ocean City has maintained that integrity since I was a little boy. So I think the people that run the city should be applauded for that. The aesthetic in our town is one that has changed somewhat over the years, but the theme has remained the same, family friendly, which is what we are. When I say to people, they ask me about Ocean City. When I lived on the West Coast, people love to pronounce the state I'm from as New Jersey. We're actually not New Jersey here, it's New Jersey. And when I would describe Ocean City, people wonder, well, how does that work? How is a town like that worth going to? People come here for the town that we've created. The local feeling is unlike any other up and down the coast. Safety and cleanliness. Think about this. We all see the aftermath of Memorial Day, okay? Tourism is a vital part of this town. And then next morning, I'm telling you, we give Disney a run for its money. These streets are clean. And the next day, they're clean again. That takes a huge staff and commitment. That boardwalk integrity is really what's maintained throughout a very busy season. The boardwalk's anchored by amusement parks. We've been very fortunate to have Wonderland as long as we've had it. Most of us have had terrific memories of Wonderland. I've got several photos of me being dressed in the silliest suits as a kid and carted up to go take my cousins to Wonderland. The way it's situated is you've got Wonderland on one end, Playland on the other end, and you walk the boardwalk. Oh, we'll turn around at Wonderland. How many times have you heard that? It encourages people to use the boardwalk, walk the boardwalk. And by doing so, it exposes all those businesses and diversities and restaurants, shops. You get to sample the entire thing when you're here. You just don't go up to a destination, you come down, you walk the boardwalk. We've got fantastic music venue. The way the Music Pier is run is exemplary. The different bands you can hear, I mean, there's entertainment every weekend. It's alive. We have great pop-up offerings, different themes that happen all the time. Our Ocean City calendar is quite full, and that boardwalk is essential to that. Facilities, top-notch. As I said before, cleanliness, top-notch. The retail offerings, sure, you can say there's certain reoccurring themes throughout, but that's the boardwalk. That's fine. That's what the people want. That's what the people have. Our design aesthetic, if you were to describe what we have, it's that small town feel, Pete, that you referenced. The boardwalk reflects that. The things that are offered to the boardwalk patrons reflect the town. And I think that's why it really is essential that we look at how the boardwalk is used. Wonderland, let's use Wonderland as an example. It draws thousands daily in the summer months. It encourages people, as we say, turn left, head down to Wonderland. There are shops down there, there's the beaches down there, but Wonderland is really the epicenter of why you make that trip. Wonderland represents a great place to bring your kids. It's super for the young kids, for entertainment. It's that family entertainment. Even up to the last day of Wonderland, it drew people. It drew people, it drew crowds. So it went down swinging. And again, it served the purpose. It makes the boardwalk not just a single destination, but a walk, an adventure, so to speak, up and down the boardwalk. It became iconic for you to bring your little kids, right? It's a great, safe venue. Oh, they're somewhere around Wonderland. You knew they were okay. Meet us at the pizza place. So it's that kind of environment that really Wonderland stands for, and I think that's what exemplifies what we'd like to see in the boardwalk going forward. As we think about this, there's a few questions we should ask ourselves. Which option creates a better boardwalk? Which creates foot traffic? Which brings people down to that end of the boardwalk? You're not going to replace Wonderland. Let's not kid ourselves, okay? It can't be replaced, okay? We shouldn't try. It's that re-envisioning. It's that next step. But which would create repeat visitors? Think about the proposal that's on the table. Repeat visitors, tourists, as we call them, day trippers. We had other words for them as a kid. But to come down, experience the town, love the town, go home. Which otherwise preserves the value of our family-oriented experience. And I think that's key. The family-oriented experience. Okay? Run the little kids into the ground, they'll sleep that night. That's where you go to do it. And then which maintains our local character. Okay? It's not just a Ferris wheel that you can see as you come over the bridge. It's that entire venue and what it represents to the town. So as you think about this, and you think about the speakers that are going to come after me, and they're going to talk about the proposals that are on the table, just think for a second, what is truly being lost by that site becoming something other than an amusement park? I think it begs the question. So thank you.
Okay, so what I wanted to do was go through first the hotel proposal that's on the table, and talk about that in the context of what's already been brought up. Like, how does what Pete talked about is we don't have a lodging problem in the town. We have an affordability issue in the town. You can't unring the bell on affordability. So what you have to do is make the entertainment in the town worth that investment. You need to drive traffic in terms of up and down the boardwalk. You need to create day trippers coming here because people's stays are shortening. So you need to fill in that gap now with people that are coming here for the night or for the day. So those are the things that, and Brian just went through all those questions, right? So let's look at the proposal and how does it compare to those needs, right? So foot traffic. So it's a resort that's being proposed. And if you think about resorts' business model is to capture their visitors, right? Because the idea is they don't just sleep there. They eat there, they swim there, they drink there, they do everything else there. Not to say that they won't go onto the boardwalk. So the amount of foot traffic that this new venue would create is far, far lower than what Wonderland achieved, even in its most difficult days. So the best example of this is just think about Atlantic City. I'll just use the example. The pizza place next to the casino fails because the casino wants to hold on to that visitor while they're there. So we think that, that it will not create the traffic that you need on a boardwalk. And boardwalks live on traffic. I described to somebody, it's 9 blocks of impulse purchases. That's what it is. And you need to keep people moving, right? So that's the first piece. Next slide, ma'am. The second, and obviously, a resort is not for kids. Yes, he's proposing to have a carousel, but that does not make it a venue for children. Wonderland, there are other places on the boardwalk where, there are kids' rides, but Wonderland was that place where kids could go and be with their other kids, right? It was very unique in that respect. We think very important in terms of the Ocean City family-friendly vibe. We think very important in terms of people booking vacations here because that's what they were looking for their children. So the venue that's being proposed, will not serve that function when we think is a very, very important function. Next slide, please. The third, it's just too big. I mentioned earlier about the documentary that we produced, actually before this whole Wonderland thing happened, because we just loved the Plaza Place neighborhood. And so we got to meet the neighbors, we got to film the street, we got to hear their stories. I really urge people to watch the video, because you will see the faces of the people who will be directly impacted by this construction and operation. It is a very, very large facility. The average house on Plaza Place is about 2.5 stories. This is 8.5. It's 257 rooms. It's big. The shadows will be on the Plaza Place neighborhood till after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So it is a very, very large structure, and we think one that's not appropriate for that part of the boardwalk. So we have other things, but I think those are, if we distilled it down, those are really the 3 things that we think are challenging about this proposal. It's not to say that he hasn't put together a nice looking resort. It's just not this spot. This is not the right spot for it. So I wanted to have Jim Turteltaub come up and talk about redevelopment. You've heard about it, maybe. It's the process that Mr. Mita wants to use to get this project permitted. So Jim will take you through that. Just background on Jim, he'll give you his own, but we reached out to Jim because there was a Supreme Court, New Jersey Supreme Court case back in 2023 involving a case that had very similar facts in a way to this. And Jim was the winning lawyer in that case, set some new law in New Jersey in terms of what does obsolete mean and what does harm mean, and he'll talk to you about that, but we're great to have him working with us.
Good morning, everybody. And again, Jim Turteltaub. Oh, get the microphone. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Jim Turteltaub, and I get involved in redevelopment and development all over the state of New Jersey. And it's the first opportunity really to come down to this lovely town, and I've really enjoyed learning about what's going on here. And I did get a chance to watch the meeting on Monday night, and the more I learn about this community, it has an identity. It has an identity which revolves around the boardwalk, revolves around the attractions that were there and are there, and it brings people in. Why do people are choosing this town for reasons other than other towns? It's got some unique features to it. And it's also going through a transition. And to get your way through that transition, you have a very active community here, which I think is terrific. You don't necessarily see that in all places. All these people out here today to discuss the future of a piece of property, I think is very important, very significant. I know there's more on the internet here watching as well. And to the governing body, I'd urge you to talk to your constituents, because these are the people you're going to have to live with after this is all done. And redevelopment is just one tool in the toolbox you have to address this issue. I'm not here today to say what's right or wrong for the community. I'm here to talk to you right now about what options you have and some of the things you can do. But you have a group here that, especially the OCNJ Historic and Culture Committee, that wants to be able to participate in this because they understand, they live here, they're part of this community, and they want to work with it, because the question is going to be is once you take down the Ferris wheel, once you take down the amusement park, once you take down, one of the things that I heard is drawing people and families to this community, what fills its place and how does that impact everything else? Today, the town fathers and mothers have looked at the zoning and they've said, well, let's put retail and amusements here. That's what the zoning is today, and that was what the vision was. Whether that should stay or not is a decision that has to be made, but it should be done as part of a holistic approach, as we've been talking about with the community here, which involves a different tool in the toolbox. And I'll get into redevelopment in a second, but right now, the municipal land use laws have processes such as master planning and then zoning, which apply to an overall comprehensive plan for the town. The concern I'm hearing... I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, you got it. The master planning and zoning process takes the holistic view of the municipality into play, whereas redevelopment, you're going to focus specifically on a piece of property. Although it may be done in the context, and it is referred to the planning board to look for consistency with the master plan, especially as we've been talking about this property and this proposal, it's something very different. It's actually a use that apparently was tried once in this community, didn't work, and now they're trying to bring it back. And you take this major draw to the community and replace it with one that may or may not work, and the impacts on everybody else, where I understand that the draw is the boardwalk and bringing the general public into town, not just to use the Wonderland itself or what use is on that piece of property, but it's every other piece of property in town gets impacted by how that boardwalk is used, how it brings people in, whether you have vacancy rates in your hotel, because, again, people are going to choose between here, Cape May, Atlantic City, wherever else they may be choosing, what's going to make them come here to Ocean City. And the concern I hear is we should do this as a comprehensive view of what our community is going to be in the next step without Wonderland being there, as opposed to taking this one piece of property, coming up with a plan. Now, redevelopment itself is another tool in the toolbox, and it's meant under the New Jersey Constitution, which is where the statute emanates from, for blighted properties. And blighted properties are properties that are detracting from the community, pulling away resources, and are overall a detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the community. At this point in time, I think the question would be is, does Wonderland, even as it stands there today closed, constitute that? Who's going to come back next summer? How is it going to impact it? I had a case recently, also another West Orange case, where there was a shopping center. And in this day and age, shopping centers are increasingly becoming vacant. And the question, they wanted to put this into redevelopment and go through different processes with it, and create some site-specific zoning for the shopping center. My clients, who were citizens in the town, didn't want to see that. They wanted it to be part of the overall process, not the way they were going about it. And in the end, the appellate division said, we haven't seen the actual detriment and the harm that this, under the provision of the statute that they were going under, was causing to the community. So albeit, yeah, shopping malls are having problems, there are vacancies. The question is, what are the impacts on the community around it? And I'm not sure that assessment's been made right now, and I'm not sure just because it's been closed. My understanding is just as last summer, this was one of your major draws into town, was bringing people in Wonderland. So I'm not sure those effects are there. But if you jump to the gun and going into redevelopment, redevelopment is a process whereby first you have to designate a property to be in need of redevelopment. And the community can determine whether it wants to be a condemnation where the government would actually have the power to seize it using the power of eminent domain and then pick a developer out for the property, or go through a non-condemnation. I assume this is what they're probably contemplating here, as a non-condemnation. But that doesn't mean it's not subject to challenge by the community. And if the community is concerned about what's happening and they don't see the blight there that needs to be present in order to utilize these statutes, you may end up in litigation. And litigation can take years to do to settle a property. Whereas you have a community right now who's looking to try to meet, talk, and come up with a comprehensive plan to be able to work this property forward, not just for this property, but it's for the community as a whole. Because once you take away one major business, one major attraction, it can eventually have impacts on everybody else. If you replace it with a use that's compatible with the neighbors, that's one impact. If you take it away and put it with a use that's incompatible with the neighbors, it can have an entirely different impact. And so, again, any of the town fathers and mothers that are here today, again, you have a community here that's looking to try to work with you, because you have to establish various steps and proofs in order to be able to use redevelopment. It's not just because you use a non-redevelopment, thank you for pointing out that I'm not going to the microphone, just because you might not be using a condemnation in this doesn't mean it's not subject to challenge. The Malanga case, which I had in the New Jersey Supreme Court last year, was a town tried to blight its own library for the purpose of giving it, selling it to a developer for a housing project. And the people didn't like the way they were going about doing it. And that case was all about whether a library itself was a blight on the community. So there are, right now you're at a unique spot where you have all of the players in place. I did hear there's a vision as to whether hotels belong back on the boardwalk or not. And there's a vision that says we should have a more community-oriented, welcoming the general public back to the boardwalk. And then there's size and there's all kinds of things. In fact, your last master plan said maybe we should make some changes down there, but those changes were to have retail on the bottom and residential on top, which is an entirely different marketplace. But again, the community here today is asking you, at least in discussing with me, how to go about using the right tools in the toolbox to come up with a plan that works for the community and not just one property owner. Because at the end, although that one property owner may get what it wants, it may not be the type of thing that everybody wants for the community. And hopefully that will answer any questions you have for it. But I thank you very much, and I wish you all.
All right, thanks, Jim. So just a little bit more on the impact of redevelopment versus a more holistic approach to looking at the boardwalk, right? So a more holistic approach that Jim talked about was if you were to take your master plan, go through a process, and if you decided that we want to change a couple sections on the boardwalk to accommodate some development, you lay that down in your master plan, and that contains that issue, meaning that development is only going to occur in those spots because that's what your master plan said. And you don't have to contort yourself in a master plan to decide that a property is blighted. It's not a relevant consideration. And I don't think anybody here believes Wonderland is blighted. Or if you do, then most of your boardwalk is blighted too. So what's the concern of redevelopment? And Jim talked a little also about the potential for litigation. Well, if Wonderland is blighted because it needed repair, then, well, you could look at the water park. You could look at other parts on the boardwalk. And they're all going to raise their hand and say, we want to do redevelopment too. And that would be the financially smart thing for them to do. Because if you think about it, if Wonderland is replaced by something that does not create foot traffic, then those other businesses are going to be challenged to survive. So they're going to want to raise their hand and go, we're blighted too. We want to build a hotel. And by not having contained the issue through its master plan, the city is going to be hard-pressed to say no to those other requests. Or if they do say no, then they end up in litigation. So when we first heard about this is one of the big concerns that we had. It's this ripple effect, or down the boardwalk, or domino effect, whatever we want to call it. And we were like, is that really what would happen? And then we found out that at the Boardwalk Merchants meeting, when this proposal was being put forward, that was exactly how it was being sold. You can do it too. And I was looking at, I heard some numbers the other day. Now, these are just numbers I heard, so don't take them as fact. But if we all know the Soleil property, which is on 12th, 11th and 12th. And that is sited for a hotel, sits on the boardwalk. And then you have Wonderland, which sits on the boardwalk. They're roughly the same size. So Wonderland, the property, sold for $8 million, or at least that's what we can divine from the documents. It may be more, maybe less, but it's in that ballpark. What the owners of the Soleil wanted for that property, which was now zoned for a hotel, $30 million. That's the impact of being able to get that zoning, which goes back to my original point. That's why they're all going to want to do it. So this would happen very fast. Very, very fast, because there's so much money involved. And how do we know that? Next slide, Nick. We've all seen what's happened with the residential real estate market in this town. I'll give you an example. We restored a house on 9th and Pleasure. So it was a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom in the front, 2-bedroom in the back, 2 houses. This is 2018. It was in kind of rough shape. I'd seen worse. So think about it. 2 buildings on the property. This is 2018. $275,000. That lot today is $1.5 million. That's the result of developer money pouring into this town. Things are no longer priced, as we all know. There was a time when a single-family home in Ocean City was priced as a single-family home. No more. When zoning gets changed to multiple dwelling, when variances are granted to make the building as big as you can, and that is, I was talking to Keith Hartzell one time. He says, that's theory. Max it out. Max it out. So the value of the land now is how much you could make with the biggest possible property, a house on that property. That's what's happened in residential real estate. That is what has pushed the middle class completely out of this town. And that is exactly what will happen on the boardwalk. Exactly. And think about how fast it happened with residential real estate. It will happen that fast with up on the boards. So, next slide. Ma'am. So, this is a real issue. And it's not just us. This is what the other side is saying will happen as well. Now, there's another thing that's out there that we just want you to be cautious of and not be afraid of, right? There's a false choice being put to you. The false choice is, what do you want? Do you want a resort or this rusting hulk? Now, I don't know if that was a choice that has been made to look like that purposefully, but that's what people think the choice is. That is not your choice. That is not your choice. The rusting hulk can be dealt with. So don't make a choice based upon that false set of choices. You make your choice based upon what's the best thing for the long term of the community. Okay? So let's talk a little bit, let's finish up on the proposal that's on the table, and then we'll talk a little bit about our ideas. So, just in summary, you heard what we believe the needs of this town are. We believe we have an affordability, we don't have a lodging problem, we have an affordability problem. And the way you deal with an affordability problem is you make it worth the money. And you do that by leveraging your key asset, which is the boardwalk. And you make that the best experience possible. In a simple way, if you have an affordability problem, logic would tell you a luxury resort is not your answer. Right? Second, the process that is being proposed is an extraordinarily dangerous process for us. That will have not only devastating impact on the community that is right there, and I can see people from Plaza Place here, but the whole boardwalk. So we think there's a much better way to think about moving forward on the Wonderland property. And again, I just want to make it clear. We're here because this has become a public process. We're not here because this is a private owner that has the right to build something and we're trying to stop him from building what he's entitled to build. That's not what we're doing. He is not entitled to build this. He needs permission to do so. He needs that from council. And our job is to give council as much information as possible so that they make what we believe is the right choice. So we're not here to say, we're going to build this, but we're here to say, here's an idea, a different way to think about what Wonderland can be and what's the right process going forward. So our plan, next slide there. No surprise. We believe that what should rise at Wonderland is another child-friendly entertainment venue of some type. Though that was one of the critical losses with Wonderland. And if you're trying to make sure that your boardwalk is as vibrant as possible, that's the thing you need to replace. Second, if there's a desire to look at the on-boardwalk zone, and we don't think you need to, but we're not to just say no people. If you wanted to look at the boardwalk and how you could adjust the zoning, you don't do it through redevelopment. As Jim said, you got a better tool in the toolbox. That's your master plan process. It has the greatest amount of input. You do all your studies. It's a slow, methodical process with great public input. That's the process that you use. And if you do all that, we think you set yourself up, either way, for a very strong boardwalk that has great public input and a great amount of public trust associated with it. So, next slide. So, for some of you may know, we actually started a contest 2 months ago when all this began because we felt like we wanted to reach into the community and say, how would you envision Wonderland? Because I think there was a view at one time, just reopen the gates. And honestly, we didn't get a single proposal for just reopen the gates. Everyone said, this is a great opportunity. Level the place. Start from scratch. Because you can build a much better venue, right? So we got a bunch of proposals in, really good ideas. Some really crazy ideas too, but we love the enthusiasm. So again, this is material that we will deliver to council, saying this is something else that you can think about. So this is one of the ideas that came in. We've added a couple pieces from other ideas, but I'll tell you, it's pretty much one idea that came in, and I thought it was a great idea. So next slide there. So this is a rendering of what we would, I think the person would call it like Wonderland Commons or Wonderland Square. And the idea is it's actually a combination of both an amusement park, but also a town square. So think about things like Main Street in Disney World as an example, right? So you have rides, but you have a lot of other things too, and it's a place that people can go to at all times of the day just to walk around, just to experience the place. It will make money too. And this person had some really interesting ideas on how to, when you're building something from the ground up, how to make it, give it a big wow factor, but also have it make money, right? So it would have children's rides, of course. It would have a kids' theater. We'll come back to that because it's actually a multi-purpose theater. It would have a bowling alley in there. It could have what I thought was a really interesting idea. There was a food truck court. And the value of the food truck court, you can change your food offerings every week. You just roll in new trucks. You could have an Italian week, you could have a Polish week, you could have an Irish week. And if you did that sort of midweek, Wednesday to Wednesday, people who are here for 1 week stay, there's another reason for them to go back to Wonderland because you've changed out the food offerings. Right? There's a playground. We could build on that site, because there's a lot of room, an unbelievable playground. There's one that actually just got built on the lakes in Philadelphia. Fantastic playground. We could have like a model boat pond. We got other things in there. There could be a band shell. The band shell could do different things during the day. And the idea would be that while it is principally for kids, the bulk of the day, you could actually morph it at night and morph it in the morning. So in the morning, you could have farmer's market up there because you would have lanes where you could put the things. You could have artist things. You could do all kinds of things in the morning. So you would always be encouraging traffic up to that venue. Right? I thought this was a great idea that this person put together. So, what we liked about it, again, it's, next slide. It's conceptual for sure. But the underlying ideas of kid-friendly but flexible, maximum reuse all day long. Another example that they had is you could have a theater, which during the day plays kids' movies, but at night turns into a gaming center. So again, ways to bring something to a wide variety of people on the island, but focus a good amount of that time on a kid. It's also something that we think would be great for bringing in day trippers. It would provide an all year-round venue for the island. So we think it does a lot of very, very positive things. It would be the thing that would start to draw the traffic that we would hope match what Wonderland had done, because it's going to, by building it from the ground up, you can do lots of other things from a technology standpoint with augmented reality, and you can do all kinds of scavenger hunts and all these other things. So people much smarter than us, and this person who did this was much smarter than me, I think if you gave them a blank sheet of paper and said, design for me what kids really want, they would do a fantastic job of delivering you a design. Just give them the chance. So the other thing that we've thought about, and Brian brought this up, there's a very unique aesthetic to Ocean City, different than all the other towns. And we actually reached out to an architectural firm that Sneh, I think it's Professor, founded. And down one slide, maybe. So what they do is they go into communities like ours and they interview people, they look at the architecture, and they create these pattern books. And what the pattern book does, it becomes a template for people when they're doing even simple things like a new railing, a bathroom, a light. You take little bits of these patterns and you put them out there. And what it does is it takes what can be a very eclectic environment. Eclectic is good, but it starts to pull things together a little bit. And you see examples of that, I think, in Santa Fe. There's an example of that in Charleston. So another opportunity to take the boardwalk to another level, right? Because again, I think, when this first happened for all of us, I think we were like, oh God. But I think now we're at the point of, oh God, this is a great opportunity. We can actually make the boardwalk, it's already good, it's already great, but make it even better. So this design template, if you go to the next page, Liam. So it gives a little bit of cohesiveness to the eclectic nature, which is good. It's very tied into your local identity. And so when people see these things, they would identify it with Ocean City. I think the way you tie things together helps drive your tourism, because it gives the town an identity that people get attached to. And it's really scalable. You just, as you build things and as you do things, you just apply that pattern book. So, next. So we think something like this that was proposed is, for what this town needs, is a far better answer. And you do, right? But if you said, well, let's take this opportunity to look at our boardwalk and think about it. As Jim said, well, let's do that, but do it comprehensively, not for a single developer on a single lot. Right? So for those of you who are not familiar, go to the next page, Lynn, of what the on-boardwalk zone is. It's kind of this sawtooth thing that runs along the bottom here. A couple years back, the city used to say 200 feet back. The city took out the 200 feet requirement. People thought that that was shrinking what was there. That wasn't doing anything. The on-boardwalk zone remained exactly the way it was. It's just the 200-foot descriptor in the code didn't actually match what the actual zone was. But so that's your boardwalk zone, runs from 6th to 14th Street. And if you go to the next page, this is going to sound weird, but it's actually a beautifully drafted zoning provision because it speaks about strolling and engaging. And so you kind of understand what they were driving at when they put this zoning in place, is to do exactly what Brian talked about. You want to keep people moving on the boardwalk, moving up and down, buying things. You want them coming back to that boardwalk. Right? It's not a place with a single destination, but so you go to that one store and you're done for the week. It's a place that it's a great experience. So there's a string band up there one night. There's some other thing the next night. The food is changing. You're constantly engaging with this boardwalk. That's what this zoning language is trying to do. And if you look at all the various aspects of things that you can go, I appreciate it's very hard to read, but it's nothing that captures you. It just holds you for a little while, hugs you for a little while, and then pushes you on your way down the boardwalk. Right? So if you are looking to do something with the on-boardwalk zoning, again, we're not to just say no people. We're like, okay, but what's your purpose? Your purpose is to make the boardwalk better. That's your North Star. So it's, how do you enhance that boardwalk community? How do you get more people on the boardwalk, more movement, more engagement? That's what you're doing. So that's what you're looking at all the time. And you do that through this holistic tool that's in your land use planning toolbox, which is your master plan. You don't do it through redevelopment, because redevelopment's not going to do any of that. It's not only is it the wrong process because the property is not blighted, it's the wrong process to get to the right result. So those are our ideas. Actually, not ours, it's some other person. I actually have to reach out to them because we had three $1,000 prizes, so I didn't tell her yet, but she's got $1,000 coming her way. And we did extend the contest only because the ideas were getting really good, and if people could come on top now of this idea with more ideas, that would be great for us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Richard.
Can you all hear me? Good volume, okay. So, Helen and I are your final act. We are closing you out. I was assigned the job yesterday to share some closing thoughts. I want to thank Bill, Brian, Pete. This is democracy in action. This is people of their own time and energy deciding we should all come together and have a chance to talk about the future of Ocean City. I know whenever people come up here, you got to try to say, okay, why do I have any legitimacy? Sentinel was asking me, who are you? Well, I said I might tell you afterwards, no, not before. But quickly, just in terms of my story with Ocean City, and no one can see these pictures. I put so much thought into this, but you can't see a darn thing. But my family has come to Ocean City for well over 100 years, starting in the 20s, actually the teens. This is a picture I put that no one can see. It's actually my mother in 1932 of the 14th Street beach. She was a McClatchy, and the McClatchys had a house on 14th Street, and her uncle, who was a very successful Philadelphia developer, had a house on 17th Street. My mother's mother married a guy named Frank McEnany, and they decided to have 9 children, and decided that that house, sharing that little house on 14th Street with 9 kids, was no longer viable. And in the late 40s, they bought 99 Corinthian Avenue, which many of you know is the block where the boardwalk starts. 9 kids grew up there. Many of them became world-class sailors. A couple of them became fantastic lifeguards. My mother was the oldest of 9. When she met my father, she was 21, he was 28. After one summer at the shore, taking care of 8 younger kids, my father said, okay, there's got to be a better way than this. I like you, but I didn't decide I was going to be spending my life babysitting. And in 1974, my parents bought 146 East Atlantic Boulevard. So you have pictures here of this entire family history. 99 Corinthian, still in our family, McEnany family, 50 years later. 140, more than 50 years later, 146, still in my family. I grew up going every summer to 146 with my 4 siblings, learned to sail, played tennis. I worked on the boardwalk several years, painted houses. Hopefully we did an okay job. People hired us multiple times. And when I started dating my wife, who's from Texas, I remember being very nervous with this woman from Dallas, like Ocean City. She came, immediately fell in love. We started coming here every weekend. We live in New York City with our children. We had 4 children, and lo and behold, history repeats. I'm one of 5. We now have 4 of our own. 4 years ago during COVID, my wife says we need our own place, and we purchased 608 Wesley in the historic district. That's right down here. That's a picture. If you had perfect eyes and you were 6 inches from it, you would see our 4 children sitting on the stairs. So my children are the 5th generation in our family to get to enjoy this amazing, amazing community. We eat at Reddy's 3 to 4 times a day. We shop at Sunrose. We work out at Local. Some of us more often than others. I can't say I'm there every day, but I try. Ocean City's changed a huge amount in 5 generations, right? I mean, we all see the pictures, and that's the story of life. Evolution is part of what makes communities and towns fantastic. But one thing that's been true for these 100+ years that my family's come is that this has been a family town. In fact, it is our marketing. This is America's greatest family resort. How many times do you see that as the articulation of what makes Ocean City, Ocean City? We have amazing beaches. We have an amazing boardwalk. And we're a dry town. And we shouldn't forget that. We are a dry town. People can drink in their homes if they choose. People can go across the bridge if they want and when they want. But the fact that we're dry has also been a part of what's made Ocean City distinct from a Margate, from a Wildwood, from an Avalon. It's one of the reasons why I think so many of us probably, when your kids are out running around, you never think twice in Ocean City. I don't worry about anything. My kids could be out till midnight walking around when they were 12 years old. I just wasn't worried. And it's what you felt last night. For anyone, how many of you were at the tree lighting last night? Any of you at the tree lighting? That is Ocean City at its best. And you're never thinking, oh, where's the bar? It's just a beautiful family resort. And that's why I just so appreciate how many people have come out here today, because this is our community. We're homeowners, we're residents. Some of us, many of us live here year-round. And I think it's pretty clear there have been folks who, for a long time, have been used to trying to intimidate people from having a conversation about what we want our town to look like in the future. Literally intimidate us from coming out and having this conversation. So the gaslighting effects are so transparent here. The intimidation, you say, oh, what are you thinking? I mean, it's never been more obvious. It's pathetic to watch, but it has been historically, people could be intimidated for client speaking. So I get to close with 3 points that I took away from all these conversations in the last few weeks. And here they are. First, everyone should be clear that local control is what is at stake here. If you take one thing away, This is about, are we gonna use a state statute to come in and bust local control? Are we gonna take a state law truly designed for blight and use it to take away the rights of homeowners and residents who have built a master plan and a zoning plan that governs the construction of homes and buildings in the city? This is an effort to take that master plan, the zoning that all of us chose when we moved here to live with. I could decide, if I really was in a funny mood, let me tear down my house and put up a Wawa. Most people would object. They'd say the zoning doesn't allow for that. And they're right. Now I've gotten a little bit used to how people try to do this because we've had our own experience in the historic district. As I said, we bought 608 Wesley 4 years ago, and we saw a house across the street, 615 Wesley, that was in need of repair. A developer purchased the house. Can you all still hear me?
Yes.
Developer purchased the house, was letting the windows open, holes in the roof. It was an obvious attempt to let the house fall into disrepair, and then after the clock ran out, say, oh, this is no longer habitable, can be, occupied. We need to tear it down. Everyone in the neighborhood saw what was happening. So we had a meeting, a neighborhood meeting on the porch, and a real estate agent came and said, I know they say you can't visit that house, it's unsafe, but I can get you in. Of course you can get us in. And our now neighbors, Brian and Christine, were on the porch. They said, oh, that looks great. Maybe they were a little creative. Maybe they had a vision other people didn't have. But they went in, lo and behold, they ended up buying the house. And if you could see this, but go online, you can see it. This is a before and after of 615 Wesley. But the analogy to what's happening here is 100% accurate. There was zoning in place. In this case, it was historic district zoning. Someone didn't like the fact that in the historic district zoning, you can't tear down that building unless it's in such disrepair that it's unsafe, filled with mold, and then we can tear it down. But we knew it wasn't, and it's saved. And Ocean City is the better for it. It is a beautiful house. It is, people bike by, ride by, stop and look at it today, all the time. That's what's happening here. Someone is trying to say, this spot is blighted. A spot that we were all weeks ago in, filled with thousands of people. This is blighted. As a community, you do not have a say in what should happen to it. We're going to take a state statute, take away your local zoning, and turn this into a 7.5-story hotel. Let's be clear. Everyone who lives in homes around that Park Plaza place bought there knowing that that can't happen. That's not allowed. That's against our community plan. That's against what Ocean City decided. But now, someone thinks we're going to take a state law, declare this blighted, and wipe out the entire neighborhood, which we don't live in, behind it. That's what this is about. If there's something to take away, we are ending local control and giving it back to the state of New Jersey with this statute and letting a small group of people actually bypass any of the rules that we've all bought into. Second thing I hope you take away from today. The future of the boardwalk is at stake. If this is allowed, anyone who owns property on the boardwalk, and by the way, you could be a very good person, you could be the best person in the world, I'd love to hang out with you. But if you're one of fellow property on the boardwalk, every reason to believe, it's time for me to get in on this now and build a hotel. Because if we can build a 7.5-story hotel there, we can build them anywhere. And they will. Again, not because they're bad people, but because they're business owners. They're thinking about themselves, their family, as anyone should. So what will happen in 20 years? Ocean City, Maryland. And everyone knows this will happen. That's the other thing. It's like, Mita has said as much. Of course this will happen. We may have council members who think this makes sense. But we should all at least be clear about this. This isn't about one 7.5-story building, which is already, as we know, like way beyond what any of our zoning allows for. This is about letting the whole boardwalk go. And this all happened in Ocean City, Maryland in basically 20 years. So in 20 years in Ocean City, New Jersey, you will have a boardwalk filled with high-rise hotels. So you may think even, I actually like this design of this hotel. But remember, you have no idea what future designs will look like. So that's the second big issue. First is, we're losing local control. We're losing homeowner and property owner rights over the future of our town that we've all bought into. Second, we're losing control of a boardwalk. It's going to become Ocean City, Maryland. Third big issue, what's going to happen? I think the Ocean City's claim as a family town is at stake. What we saw last night was so special. We have never tried to be Sea City or Margate or Avalon. That's just not who we are. Those are wonderful towns, and if you want to go there and you want to live there, it's wonderful. You know, God bless. But that's not Ocean City. Everyone knows that this hotel, out of 252 rooms, 7.5 stories, will serve alcohol. Everyone knows it. I mean, it's the worst kept secret in Ocean City right now. And for me, it's a big question, because do you want alcohol served right next to our football field, our high school, and Tabernacle? No. Why? Why do we need a hotel serving alcohol hundreds of yards from where we have Friday night games, hundreds of yards from our high school? No one is building a 252 hotel room in 2025 that is not serving booze. So, in my mind, we have a zoning, we have a master plan. We've heard this today. If we want to change that, we as homeowners, we as residents, should be part of a process to change that. And if people want this as part of that process, that is absolutely everyone's option to do. But it's our right to be engaged in that. We shouldn't be letting the state of New Jersey take that right from us. So I have a few questions that I would leave you with, and I'm going to turn it over to Helen, who I think has our call to action. But here they are. They're covered a bit here, but I'll just read them. Do you want, as you leave here today, do you want local control of our zoning? Crafted by the citizens and homeowners of our town, dedicated to keeping our boardwalk and our community family-friendly and America's favorite family resort.
Yes. Yes.
Do you want our town to use its typical zoning and planning tools to further strengthen the boardwalk, allowing for the greatest public input and voice?
Yes.
Only two more. Do you want a boardwalk that looks nothing like Ocean City, Maryland, but stays true to our Ocean City charm?
Yes.
And do you want to ensure Ocean City keeps alcohol off the boardwalk and nowhere near our football field or high school or our Tabernacle?
Yes.
Thank you for coming out today.
Hello all, I'm Helen Struckman. I'm with Save Wonderland. Some of you might have seen our posts on Facebook and on Instagram, and I just want to thank all of you for being here. It's really nice to see so much support from Ocean City. A little bit about me. I'm a third generation Ocean City gal. My grandparents, Reuben and Mary Oves, met on the Ocean City beach when my grandfather was on the beach patrol back in 1914. And they settled here, and they had a large family on Asbury Avenue. And very, very blessed to still have my family home. Many of you probably enjoyed my Uncle Tom Oves donuts on the boardwalk there at Oves Beach beach place right on the boardwalk. And my first job was actually at the Connoisseur Shop when I was 14 years old. And so Ocean City is very, very near and dear to my heart. And so when I saw everything was happening, I knew that I had to be part of this movement. And so you've heard a lot of great speakers here today. Certainly, Pete talking about the real impact of the price increases and everything that's been happening with less hotel rooms being utilized. We've heard about how redevelopment zones can end up impacting our boardwalk. And so you might ask yourself, well, what can I do about this? There's a lot of things that you can do about this. And certainly by coming to these meetings is the first thing. It's showing our council, it's showing our leadership here that we're not just going to be passive and allow these changes to happen without having a voice. And so what we're really asking you to do is, number one, talk to your council members, talk to the mayor. On our Facebook page, Save Wonderland, we actually have a whole list of all of our council members with their cell numbers, or their office numbers, their email addresses, their addresses. We also have a petition that you can sign, but the main thing is really let your council members know what your thoughts are. And we ask you really be very specific. If you're worried about redevelopment setting a precedent for lots of other hotels perhaps being able to be built on the boardwalk, let them know that. If you're worried about the precedent of these hotels changing the very, very nature of the Ocean City Boardwalk and really changing us from America's greatest family resort to, a resort of hotels, let them know. If you're worried about that setting a precedent of alcohol on the boardwalk, let them know. Whatever your personal concerns are, let them know. And I think that we've really brought up a lot of key points here, especially that even the fact of this redevelopment zone, if it goes through, that sets a precedent where other hotel developers can easily sue the city, where we're going to be spending a lot of time in litigation. And these are all factors that I don't really know if our council is aware of it. And what Bill brought up is that, if we want to make changes in our town, redevelopment zone is not the way to do it. Being able to have council really thoughtfully think about what the master plan should be. And with what was happening until it was too late. But with this, we see it coming. We can actually change it right here and right now. And so we need all of you to really help with that. And one of the things that you can do is, you see I've got my little Save Wonderland button here. Save Wonderland, it's not about saving an old rundown amusement park. Save Wonderland is about saving the magic of Ocean City. I mean, not only are we America's greatest family resort, but we're America's last family-friendly city. Wonderland is that American magic, and that's what we're really saving to we're really fighting to save. And so we've got these Save Wonderland buttons. By wearing these around town, you can let council know that you're really against the irresponsible redevelopment of the boardwalk. We've also got wonderful no zoning signs that you can put in your front yard. If you've got a business, you can put them in your business. Talk to your neighbors. If you've got other folks that you know on your block, talk to them. Invite them out to these meetings. Like our Facebook page, because we post a lot. We blast all the different events that are happening, and we want more community involvement. So talk to people that you know and let them know about this movement. Let them know that they have a voice in what's going to happen with Ocean City. Let's see here. We also do have a petition that's online that we're going to be delivering to council. So if you don't necessarily want to take the time to write your own letter, you can go to our website, and there's a petition there. We're also going to be giving out, we've got a little card, and on the back of the card it has a QR code where it's got the petition. It's also got the Facebook link. It's also going to have the ability to donate, and that's another thing you can do. Certainly help us to be able to spread the word about this cause. Help us to do things like, purchase some of the memorabilia from Wonderland that we can either donate to the Historical Museum, or we can have around town, something where we're able to keep some of our history. Things like, the little no zoning signs. There's all cost money. So things that you can do to be able to get involved is, donate a little bit. And that way we can further the movement, we can really share what it is that we're doing. You can also get involved by helping us to actually hand out the no zoning signs. And wear the buttons wherever you go to church, wherever you go to work out, wear the buttons. Put the no zoning signs out. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to your council members. We want, whenever council goes out, we want them seeing these signs and these buttons everywhere they go. We want them to know very, very clearly, what does this island want? What do we want for our future? Because we're not just going to sit back and allow developers to take it over. We have the ability to do something right now. Our boardwalk is not just a tourist attraction. It truly is the heart and soul of our community. And together, we are able to ensure that it stays that way and sustains for many, many years to come. But we have to do something very, very clearly and very loudly to let them know that we're not going to let them just pass these changes that benefit one person or one developer. This is 11,000 people that are here year-round, and hundreds of thousands that come here every year. Many, many people that are second homeowners. This affects all of us, and it certainly affects the identity of our entire island going forward. Like I said, do we want to be America's greatest family resort, or do we want to be an island that has no identity at all? Because that's what's going to happen. If you take away the zoning that protects our boardwalk and you allow these changes, it changes who we are as an island. So we're going to open it up.
I have a question, but it's going to be for Jim, so if you want to give the mic to him. In the meantime, I'm going to say, if you're in Ocean City, at this time of year, what is the busiest place in town? It's at the high school. Where does a whole bunch of people come to park? It's at the high school. That's the only place in town where it's hard to find parking. I substitute teach there, and you park on Atlantic near Plaza Place. So we're going to take the only place that's busy in town and put a hotel there. So at night, whenever there is a community event at the auditorium, a play, when there is a football game, where are these people supposed to park? If I have a half-day school and there's a breakfast at the hotel and the employees are parking on all the streets around, then I can't find a spot to park at the school. It just doesn't make sense to put this huge place next to the busiest place in town at this time of year. Then he said, well, it's no problem because I only have 12% occupancy in the winter. So my employees can park in the parking garage then. If you only have 12% occupancy, why are you doing this? And he said in the summer he is going to use a jitney to bus in his employees. From what mysterious parking lot are they going to be bussed in from? I don't know. So my question is for Jim, if you could explain to us lay people the process of redevelopment, like what's step 1, what's step 2, what's step 3, what's step 4 in our Faulkner Act community with our council form of government, with the planning board and zoning board. Like what are the steps, and at each step, what can we do as a community to stop this so that we don't get involved in lawsuits for the next 5 years?
Just one thing to add on to that real quick, what are we looking at timeline? Is this going to all happen in the next month or 6 months? If you can give us some insight on that.
Timeline, I can't give. I can tell you the process itself. A couple of things. It reminds me of a story that I had years ago when I was dealing with a state senator on a bill, and his line to me was, the price of democracy is vigilance. And I think that what you're saying there is to be vigilant, because your actions, you are citizens, you're voters, you vote the council in, you can vote them out, you have all of those powers, and to show up at meetings. One thing also to understand is that the redevelopment process, the idea under the Constitution is blight is a detriment to the community. So the idea under the redevelopment statutes is to give the municipalities a tool to eradicate blight, which is a public project. It's viewed as being, even though a private developer may be undertaking it, it's viewed in the sense of the law as being something for the public good. So the process itself is as follows. Under the what's called the Local Redevelopment and Housing Law, the LRHL sets out a process. And in that process, the first step is the governing body asks the planning board of the town to undertake a study to determine whether they believe the property is blighted, or the property that they asked to have them review is blighted. So in this case, the council would ask if the review to be done by the planning board is to determine when a property is blighted. 600 boardwalk is blighted. Maybe other areas as well, but that's the one we're talking about here today. The planning board would then undertake a study. Because blight is a word that needs definition, the legislature has enacted a statute that basically outlines all of the different elements of what they believe blight to be. You have to meet one of those criteria in order to be a blighted property. I can get into them in detail, but I'm not sure, given the length that we've been here today, I'll get into that. But there are criteria that the property would have to meet. And so the planning board would undertake a study. They would then come up with a recommendation to the council as to whether they believe, as a planning board, which is an independent body from the council, whether we believe the property is blighted. If they say we believe it's blighted, they then send a recommendation to the council, yes or no, we believe you should designate this as an area in need of redevelopment. The council would then adopt another resolution, either accepting or rejecting that recommendation. In this case, let's say the council decides that they want to go through the redevelopment process, they would adopt a resolution in which they would declare the property to be in need of redevelopment. Now, there's two types of redevelopment areas you can create. I don't want to get into all the details of how you get there, but one would give the power to the municipality to actually acquire the property by eminent domain, to condemn the property and take it away from the owner and give it to whoever they want to redevelop it. Another process would be a non-condemnation area where they would work with the actual property owner or people who are in place to be able to do the development and work with them on the development. In this case, it sounds like they might be going in the direction of a non-condemnation area. The blight criteria is the same. Whether it meets blight is the same, but there's two different ways they can go about doing it, using eminent domain or not. Once the council adopts that resolution as to whether the property is an area in need of redevelopment, there is then a 45-day period in which you as citizens of Ocean City, who are going to be impacted by this designation, could file suit challenging whether they actually met the criteria of blight. Did they meet that step? After the 45 days, your rights of appeal are gone. So you would then go, if you want to file a suit, then you're going to be in the Cape May Superior Courthouse, and you're going to have a litigation there, which will basically take a judicial review of what the town did and whether the properties actually meet the blight criteria. That can get appealed to the appellate division, and like I learned in Malala last year, it can actually go up to the Supreme Court of the state of New Jersey. It can take time. It can take months in the trial court. It can take years in the appellate division. It can take time. It can slow up the process. But that is something that you as citizens have a right to do, is to challenge this process. Once you have a redevelopment designation, the city then can adopt a redevelopment plan, which is what we've been talking about, the difference between zoning, which is part of the comprehensive zone plan for the community. Right now, the boardwalk, 600 boardwalk, is part of the ON boardwalk zone, the on boardwalk zone. But they would be able to create a site-specific, just for Wonderland, the development criteria. It could be that they can set whatever parking requirements they want to, they can set building heights, they can do whatever they want to for it. They would then make those recommendations. The planning board would come up with a plan, the council would come up with a plan. Most likely, they can get a lot of details how to come up, but in all likelihood, the council would come up with a redevelopment plan, which would be site-specific zoning, in essence. They would then send it to the planning board for review of consistency with the master plan. The planning board will make that review, send back their recommendation. Again, the council can take it or reject it, and then adopt a redevelopment plan by ordinance. Once that's done, you can again challenge that, but the likelihood is the designation is the one where the courts have more discretion to be able to review what they've done in the redevelopment plan. Once the redevelopment plan is in place, the town can then designate a developer for the property, which would likely, in this case, sounds like the owner of the property, and then they would then proceed with a project on the site. But you're really, at the very outset, when they go through the designation process, that's really where the challenge, if you're going to do one, would really have to be get your foothold in there, because that's where the most reviewable areas of the whole process are. So, and again, the question about timing, it can take, some towns will work fast. Some planning boards will tee it up and get it done in a month, and some can take months to do it. The council could get to it right away. They might take it off, take some time to do it. Again, be part of the process. Only the owner of the property will get notice of these, of the media redevelopment designation. So it'll be also published in the newspaper. But as a community, if you're concerned about this, keep following agendas from the council, from the planning board, to see if any of these things are happening. Because you may not find out about it until after it's over. And when court's going to review whether it is blighted. It's the meeting before the planning board that will have the most evidence in it. The court's going to be mostly constricted to what's before the planning board, not 100%, depending upon the issues. But generally speaking, the court will review what the planning board did to identify whether the property met that criteria, and then whether the council properly acknowledged its agreement or disagreement with what the planning board did. But it's you as citizens who have to make it the record. If you don't believe that the things that they're getting are full and complete, you can put on your own evidence, you can put on your own challenges to the redevelopment information that the planning board has to make that recommendation. So it's a long, there's a lot to redevelopment, but hopefully that gives you an idea. The council does not have to do redevelopment.
I think that we can probably put all this information on the Facebook page, and that way, because it's very, very detailed. It's a lot of meat here, and I know that we've got a lot of other questions as well. So these are all really, really good points. Jim, if you could actually just kind of write a summary, and that way we'll put it on the Facebook page, and that way it'll be available for everybody, because I know that this is definitely information that everyone wants to hear. Before I forget, could I have Mary Ann and Donna stand up for me? So we're going to have, now I want to be able to have the, these are the ladies that they're going to have buttons, and they're also going to have our card at the back of the room. In addition to, we've got some of the lawn signs, so just in case anybody does have to leave before the question and answers are over, I'm going to have one of you get in the bag there, and that way you can be at the back of the room for everyone. So I know that gentleman in the back with the beard and the glasses and the green, you got your hand up. You just put your hand down again. Michael, I believe. Yeah, so I know you had a question, and then Melissa.
And Helen, I just want to say, because I know we may start losing folks, we will make sure we post all the answers. These are great questions. I want to thank Sherry for hosting us today at this beautiful, beautiful place.
So, my name is Michael Camino. Not a lot of people know me. My companies have multiple LLCs in Ocean City. I'm not a business owner per se. I own the property, so more or less I'm a landlord. Since this whole Wonderland stuff has started, my companies have been approached by multiple developers looking to buy some of our boardwalk land. So while I do agree this is a long process, let me tell you, developers are circling. They want to buy, they made some really interesting offers to my partners and I to buy some of our boardwalk properties because they're looking to build hotels fairly cheap. So anyone that says it can't happen to us, this is a cancer. You kill the cancer. You don't let it spread down the boardwalk, because ultimately this cancer will consume our city. And I have some creative words in the last meeting, but let me assure you, moral decay is the PG version of it, is set to follow. So if I'm getting offers from developers who want to buy our properties, and again, they're behind LLCs, so none of the business owners know that potentially they could lose their businesses on the boardwalk. I'm not going to name them. Let me assure you that if this goes through, people will profit from this. And I'm here to support not having this happen, even though it's not in my financial best interest. Thank you all. Keep up the good work. And don't let this cancer spread, people, please.
Thank you.
My name is Jack Pesner. I'm a permanent resident here of Ocean City. I've attended all of the meetings, and I've watched Ocean City change over the last 30 years. Not the least which was the proliferation of condos, of which I own one, and the decline of the number of family homes. The problem is when you have all these condos, that reduces family owners. And so, as you may know, Ocean City High School, the majority of students are from Upper Township, and to a lesser extent, from other surrounding communities. This high school would not survive without those other communities. And that's very, very important to understand. This has all been changing in the last number of years. Now, I've also watched all of the changes that have taken place on the border. I saw the movie theaters go. Remember, we once had a saltwater swimming pool here. That's gone. A whole range of things have changed. And it's not going to go back to where it was. It's not going to go back to where it was 30 years ago when I was here, when I started here. But we have a lot of wonderful things here, not least of which is the center, of course, the POPs, a whole range of things. But you are presenting, and I took my children and grandchildren to the park, and you are presenting that as an alternative. You mentioned concepts, some of which already exist, like farmers markets and the tabernacle and playgrounds and things of that sort. But my question is this: are you going to present a concrete plan supported by evidence of your plan to restore that area as an amusement area again? See, having concepts is one thing, band shells, things of this sort, but unless you present something concrete, how can you support something? You're posting something, but you're not supporting something. So my question to you is, when will you have a concrete plan?
True.
When?
So, good question, right? And so a couple of things on that, right? Part of the process here is to get the city to embrace that it wants to keep a venue, an entertainment venue up there. So that would be enormously helpful in terms of further developing the idea, because frankly, what you would do in that instance is you would actually turn the idea over to a real developer and say, okay, take this further and see what. So we've done enough, and we can do more, to prove out some of the economics. We've looked at what would fit on the site. We've thought through. I've had a lot of conversations with Scott Simpson, who runs Castaway, in terms of the cost of rides and those things. So there's a fair amount of analysis behind it. So you're absolutely right. At some point, it needs to take on even more definition. I would tell you at this point, what he's presenting for his hotel and what we're presenting are both concepts. So we're kind of running neck and neck with him. But I think the city's embrace of, hey, we want this to be an entertainment venue, that would be a game changer for the effort. Because we've also been raising money, and just the background on the money was, the idea was that we would create ideas and we would have capital that we would turn over to a developer to de-risk building a new entertainment venue at Wonderland. So we've raised a good amount of money, and we think the best target for that money is actually to restore the carousel and the Ferris wheel, because that's within the range of, that's about a $5 to $6 million effort. We think we could raise enough capital to do that. So we will keep developing our plans, but part of this is to get the city to say, this is what we want to do. This is the right idea. And then once the city is behind that, then more of that development can happen. But it's a good question, and at some point the community deserves a more robust plan.
I can actually add to that, Bill. So, sir, you were asking about the actual plan, and I can tell you that after speaking with council, Mr. Mita has never actually given a full plan to zoning. There's never been full architectural plans. There's never been any type of full feasibility studies. From what I understand from council, what has been presented, not just for this, but also for the original plan that was to be on the Tabernacle grounds there, where the volleyball courts, that all of that literally was only just a a photograph, right, a drawing basically. So like, you know, what Bill's saying is that what we're even doing right now is, you know, pretty much identical to what he's been doing. So it's just the idea of, you know, starting off the concept and seeing if we can at least move council from being married to the idea of a hotel to finding something else that's going to be even, you know, better for the boardwalk, you know, kind of, you know, a Wonderland 2.0 or that North Star that Bill talks about a lot, that reimagined Wonderland that will really bring and re-energize people to that north end of the boardwalk. So that's definitely a wonderful point to bring up, that we need to have very, very concrete ideas to bring to council and certainly to the public as well.
But you see, my family managed it for 95 years. It has been in decline for several years, for whatever reason. And the fact that someone's going to take it over and make it viable again, you better have strong evidence for this. Because, and the person, of course, who ran it is also the mayor of Ocean City. So you have both of those forces, and it didn't work. And he admitted it didn't work. Obviously, he went bankrupt and sold the property.
Well, again, it's not just having it, and you said, you know, taking it over. It's not taking over Wonderland. It's being able to completely reimagine the whole idea of Wonderland, and like Bill said, bringing in other things that will bring in money. And even at Wonderland in its decline, it still had 3,000 to 5,000 visitors a day, which is significant. And that loss to the boardwalk cannot be overstated enough, that is going to be significant. So that's why we're all here, that we really need to show that loss to boardwalk foot traffic is significant. And I know that Melissa had a question as well.
So I actually just had something I wanted to say and that I noticed. I was at the meeting the other night by Zoom. I just want to encourage all of you who can get out to these meetings in person. The gentleman from Flanders mentioned a lot about families, in particular middle-class families. I'm a mom to a 9-year-old. I hang out with kids a lot. I spend most of my Saturdays at children's birthday parties this time of year. And for the most part, those meetings are very difficult, even for people who live in town. You've got kids' sports, you've got homework. These meetings are on school nights, and you've got parents usually with both parents working. And as you can see, there's not a lot of kids here because my son would just be dying. Like at this point, you would not want him in this room. But we are out there, and we do care. And that Zoom meeting hit 100 people the other night, and I believe that was the cap. The Zoom meeting that I think was in either August or September, there was a meeting in this room I attended on a Saturday. I had friends at home who cared, who could not get into the Zoom meeting because of the cap. So there are a lot more people out there, and I know some of the Safe Wonderland crowd tends to maybe skew a little more in the grandparent age group, but there are a lot of young families who truly care about this. You know, my family, we spend 9-10 days every summer. We don't pay for lodging because we stay at Pop-Up's house down at 32nd Street. We do come down and pay for lodging. Usually we rent from a friend for those 1 and 2 night stays right at 8th Street because we want to be within half a block of the boardwalk. What middle class families want, I mean, I hang out with a lot of other middle class families. A lot of us don't want to stay in a hotel room unless it's a suite, and most of us can't afford that. Why? Because we're sleeping in a bedroom next to kids. Like, families aren't getting any bigger when the parents are sleeping in a bedroom next to kids, you know? And we're not all spending money on the boardwalk. I remember the toddler days, like, okay, we're staying in a hotel tonight, mom and dad get to go to bed at 8 o'clock, great, you know? I think that's why some of these Airbnbs, one-bedroom condos, other things have become more popular with families, because we want that additional space. When we travel, usually not to Ocean City, but other places with extended family, we want the bigger space. We don't be running down the hallway of a hotel. So I think that's some of the reason maybe hotels are a little bit less appealing. What is appealing, one thing that's really been bothering me that Mr. Mita kind of keeps reiterating is, well, we think Wonderland failed because kids just want to stay on their electronics all the time, okay? Again, I hang out with a lot of kids, and it's true, my son loves his tablet. He loves the Roblox and the Minecraft, and all that stuff, he would stay on there all day if I let him. But even in Ocean City, like we come down, you know, if we tell him like, go ride your bike around, like go outside and play, he's like, really? There's a lot of whining when I tell him to leave the tablet. But I have never heard any complaints if I tell him to put down that tablet because we are going to the boardwalk. Literally, when are we going to the boardwalk is his first question. Mom and Dad, when we're staying down at 32nd, don't always feel like driving down to the boardwalk and searching for parking. The parking's a big part of it. But if it were up to him, we'd be on the boardwalk every single night. And I would say his number one things, 3 things he wants to do on the boardwalk above all else: Wonderland, Playland, and Haunted Golf is a big favorite as well. But, you know, we this year we spent money on the stores. He likes looking in the stores. We did the escape room. Somehow in a 3-day weekend, we managed to go to Mango and Mango 4 times. You know, Brown's Donuts.
Mirror maze.
What was that?
Mirror maze.
He has no, we did do that one actually.
Right here, that's their favorite.
Yeah, I mean, he loves the boardwalk. We went 2 weeks ago to Dutch Wonderland with extended family for their winter wonderland. That place was packed. I had no complaints about boredom other than that the lines were too long. Playland is packed. I don't know what business decisions were made in terms of Wonderland. I think, you know, there was some other things going on there with other investments and the owners. I don't know, but Playland is so busy sometimes that honestly it's not as much fun anymore because we spend so much time just waiting in lines. My family's already bought our Playland tickets for next year to come back, but I can't see us ever utilizing this hotel or really any of the families that I think we're pretty middle class, we're not wealthy, you know, but I don't know any families that are like, yeah, let's pay $500 a night for a hotel room that has nothing else. It's not all inclusive. It's not a Disney World. You know, I don't see anybody I know spending money on that. So one last thing, because again, I think those middle class families are underrepresented at these meetings just due to middle class family life. And kids are underrepresented. So I want to thank the folks at the front table for all the hard work they put in. They're all volunteers. And they deal with a lot of gruff. You know, they're kind of taking on the big guy here. So if you guys are ever feeling discouraged, my 9-year-old sent you guys a little thank you. He did it all by himself. And he made sure this tiny green blob in the corner is his favorite ride. It was the worm. And he wrote everything he wrote on here. You can see the misspellings and all. He did it all by himself. So thank you guys.